What's up, guys? In this next installment on before they're famous, startup pivots to fame, we're going to be going through two interesting origination stories and how they pivoted. Companies that you probably use, Pinterest and Rovio. Now, if you want to hear the stories, stick with me right now.
Ask Alex. Ask Alex. Because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
Do you know Pinterest? It began as a mobile shopping app called Tote, like a tote bag. Pinterest is an overnight success, 4 years in the making, said an anonymous investor. Pinterest was founded by Ben Silbermann, but that's not how they started out. Ben started out working at Google, but as a non-engineer at Google, he felt there was only so far that he could go in that culture. He started talking about doing a startup, but it was his girlfriend who told him, you should either do it or stop talking about it, which is what you should basically tell anyone who's talking about ideas all the time. Ben set out to transform every cell phone into a clothing retail outlet with an app called Tote. It was an app for the iPhone. It pulled data from online product catalogs to create a meta catalog for shoppers on the go. You could find particular products across retailers, sorted by location. The app was pretty enough, and the idea interesting enough, that they found institutional funding in early 2009 from Freshmark Capital in New York. Now, months after launching, it was clear that wasn't going to work. There were two big problems. Firstly, that people weren't using mobile apps for shopping. It was just too early. Secondly, Apple's App Store wasn't ready to support businesses built on the platform, as it was too slow. Now, whilst Tote users weren't making purchases via the app, they were growing collections of favorites, their favorite items, to share with their friends. To nerdy Ben, who collected insects as a kid, this was an example of people's tendency to share their collections with one another. There were sites where you could share items, but they were for a single item. Now, there was no big epiphany here. The pivot from mobile app Tote to a web-based platform was a very progressive iteration, and there wasn't any grand vision. Ben said it makes total sense because we've got the idea from a shopping app. You don't shop for whatever particular items, you shop for shoes. You shop for dresses, you shop in buckets. So they were like, okay, we need buckets. Ben wanted the product's purpose to be vague so that it could be used by everyone for anything. He learned this lesson from Twitter. Over Thanksgiving dinner, Silverman's girlfriend thought of a name for it, Pinterest. 4 months after launching, Pinterest only had 200 users. Sadly, Ben was in stealth mode, but not because we wanted to be. Ben said the site grew by the same percentage, 40 to 50%, every single month. It's just that the numbers started so low, it took a while to get going. Remarkably, the Pinterest team maintained the original vision despite the value's pressure to be successful quickly or pivot. Funnily enough, the product used today is very similar to what they launched with. They were one of the first sites to do the grid-like layout, and they over-invested in design before design was cool. Ben also did things that don't scale. Ben said, we were obsessive about the product. We were obsessive about all the writing and how it was described. We were obsessive about the community. I personally wrote to the first 5,000 to 7,000 people that joined the site. 2011 was the year Pinterest took off. 2 years after turning Tote off and abandoning the iPhone App Store, Pinterest launched an iPhone app in early March. It was one of those things that you could see that there was pent-up demand, says an investor. 24 hours after launch, the numbers were great. We all went and read the comments on iTunes. It was like a Sally Field moment. You really like me. It's kind of gay. All right. In May, Tibet venture partners invested 10 million in Pinterest at a 40 mil valuation. Blue chip investors, including Ron Conway's firm SV Angel, joined the round. User numbers kept climbing through the summer. The exponential curve looked somebody drew it perfectly, said an investor. 6 months after its launch, Pinterest, then still an only invitation-only site, had 80,000 collections on everything from favorite beverages to clothes sold in anthropology. By August 2012, the site had 25 million unique monthly users, almost 20 times the number it had the same month a year earlier, and had become the fastest standalone social networking site to reach 20 million visitors, according to Comscore's data. Now, in May, Japan's Rakuten invested 100 million in Pinterest in a deal that valued the company at 1.5 billion. Boom. The biggest investment for an early stage business in the second quarter, according to PwC, National Venture Capital Association Money Tree Report. Thank you very much. So Pinterest is doing pretty well still. That's really interesting. They purposely didn't turn on revenue so that they could tell investors, just imagine how much money we could make if we did make revenue. And that worked for quite a long time. They did turn on revenue, and I don't think it's doing that well, but anyway, it just shows you, like, if you find the right thing, you stick to your guns, you make it work. But, you know, if at first you don't succeed, pivot, pivot, pivot. Okay, guys, we're gonna get into the second one now, which is Rovio. Did you know Rovio made 51 games before they found the success with Angry Birds? Now, Rovio was perceived, yet again, as an overnight success when Angry Birds emerged in 2009. But in reality, it took Rovio 51 game attempts over 7 years before they created the game that changed the game for them. In 2003, the co-founders entered a competition held by Nokia and HP to create a mobile multiplayer game on one of the very first smartphones. And you know what? They won. Some of the organizers said they created this really cool game. They asked me what they should do. I said, start making games. They founded Reload in 2004 and asked Michael Hedda to become CEO. Now, Michael hesitated. He said, I couldn't see how that company could make money, but I felt this is what I wanted to do. Mikhail invested a few thousand euros of his own and rented an office. They spent the first year devising a strategy and wanted subcontracting work for a company called Digital Chocolate, who was a games developer. At the end of the year, they renamed the company Rovio, which means bonfire in Finnish. Now, Mikhail's father Kai, who had just sold his stake in a company, invested $1 million, which is not bad. However, disagreements with his father led to Mikhail leaving and going to publishing, creating a series of comics starring a detective called August Jesser. At the same time, the Rovio business plan just began to unravel. It was based on hits, and Rovio hadn't come up with any after many, many attempts. And in 2009, the company was running out of cash and had to make the tough call to reduce the team from 50 to 12 employees, which sucks if you've ever fired people or dramatically cut your headcount down. Mikhail was brought back in with agreement with his father that he'd get the hell out of the way. They developed a rescue plan. The App Store was the integral part. They would continue to work for hire to make ends meet, but at the same time, develop their own iPhone games, abandoning other platforms. Michael said the iPhone was a hyper-competitive environment. If we succeed here, we can go to other smartphones. And if we do well there, we can go to PC and console and beyond. We planned this out of well ahead of Angry Birds. So we decided we needed to conquer the App Store. But how do we do that? We tried to profile the iPhone user and turned out that that was everybody. So the game would be for everybody, unlike the more niche sci-fi and horror titles that they'd previously produced. Rovio came up with other criteria. The title had to be expandable to other platforms, but work as pure iPhone games. It should be physics-based, which is popular on Flash websites at the time. There should be no tutorial. You should be able to figure it out. Loading times would be minimal so that you could play happily for just like 1 minute. It needed an icon, which would stand out in the App Store. In March 2009, they struck gold, finally. Mikkel said that there was something about those characters. These birds have no feet and can't fly, and they're really angry. We all started thinking about why they were so angry. For such simple characters, they made us think so much. There was some magic to it. It's worth noting that Rovio had a non-obvious natural advantage. Finland, of course, is a relatively small country with only 5 million people. Given the small local market, the company couldn't focus on Finland alone. The Rovio team understood that in order to be successful, they had to go global from the start and create a gaming experience that would transcend cultural boundaries and appeal to the global audience. Well, they did sort of okay, I think, right? They've got movies, they've gone mad on merch. Hell, I've even seen, buses and stuff covered in the Angry Birds guys. So there we go. If that was fun, if that was interesting, if that was an interesting piece of history, feel free to share it with your friends. If you've got any comments, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Thanks, guys. Bye.